workshop. And happy Daylight Savings Day. I hope some of you got an extra hour of sleep, or maybe you were like me and you got an extra hour of awake. Really excited to be here with you today. We're going to do attendance zones and also launch into a board workshop today. So I do not believe we have any public comments. Nope. So I'm going to hand it over to the Landon Pepplin to walk us through attendance.
Morning, everybody. I think there might be a side bet or two that I can't get this done in 15 minutes, so challenge accepted. Yeah, so I will set that up to say information coming kind of fast. Happy to entertain questions if you don't have time for them today, because I know you've got a lot on your agenda. And the other thing I'll tell you before we look at this information is the one promise I can make is that it will be pretty much out of date by this afternoon. Like it changes a lot. We have more information that our demographer is working on for us as we speak. The email Friday station is working on that Monday. So this is as close approximation to where we are right now, with the understanding that you will get updated and fresh information as we go. Right? I just wanted to make sure you saw a number that's different tomorrow than what you saw today. Disclaimer is it's changing as we go. Real quick, just so you, as a quick reminder, our entire process is a run up to December, where we would like to bring you all a recommendation for the final zoning vote and be able to communicate that to our families in January so that they can visit the right schools and fill out the right choice sheets and that sort of thing. We had an attendance zone committee meeting last Wednesday with community members and staff. We'll have another one this Wednesday. It's our second. And we have a third planned for next week, Wednesday, if needed. We'll see if the committee decides that it's necessary. We got tons of good input last Wednesday. Shaped a lot of the information you're going to see here today. And we know what we get back from Zonta today and what we hear this is on Wednesday is also going to shape it again. Okay. So we do intend to release the draft for the community comment online. Hoping to do that this week. Kind of depends on how much more adjustments we might need to make. But that's a process that we want to continue to do. Take that feedback, make additional adjustments, and then have a yet to be fully nailed down, but we want to have some community open forum meetings in late November, early December, so we can hear directly from the folks that this impacts the most. It's appropriate to do it that late because you don't want to have people coming with information that's too shaky and finding out that it doesn't really apply to them. Okay? And then again, December 18th, hopefully, we have it nailed down. Okay, so priorities, obviously, we've talked about before, minimizing rezoning a lot, allowing us to best serve our students to be good stewards of our district resources. We got San Gabriel and the Knoll opening we have to zone for, and then we've got a handful of schools, Wolf Branch, Williams, Mitchell, Cooper, Tippett, Wagner in particular, that we need to take advantage of some pressure relief opportunities for, as well as accounting for future growth that we know is coming in the southeast and southwest in particular. And a little bit of a repeat of that. So let's get right into what you all came here for. Okay? So this is the draft of the zone for San Gabriel Elementary School. We'll open with roughly 400 students. That number will probably go up. It leaves Wolf Branch Elementary and a little bit of Ford. It will be an elementary school that splits between the Knoll and Tippett by this design. And then there are program considerations for pre-K from Wolf Branch that have to be taken into consideration. But you can see the original boundary is represented by the red line, and the new boundary would be what? Sky blue. Should be the San Gabriel boundary. San Gabriel boundary. And of course, considering grandfathering of rising fifth graders and their siblings, so and their kids. Okay. Another rezoning opportunity, or that's a zoning opportunity, or rezoning opportunity we're looking at and considering, but could change, is relieving Cooper by addressing about 90 students that are in the very, very far north borders right up against Gerald ISD, right up there, right as far north as you can go. And those students would be zoned to Frost instead. And what we're looking at right now, and we don't have the complete answer to yet, is how many of those students that would be rezoned are actually dual language students, meaning they would remain at right? So those are considerations for how to relieve some Cooper pressure in that area up there. We have a plan to relieve the Williams Elementary School by rezoning some students over to Carter. You can see the neighborhoods there. I believe that's all of them: West Haven, Gap Crossing, Viscaya. The red line is the current boundary, so you can see that as it wraps around there, what would be green would end up going to Carver Elementary School. So the pattern, bigger pattern being either Wagner or Tippett is a placeholder for a question we're asking our demographer right now of what are the total number of students in this zone? Because we always have to think, well, the kids are going to go to the middle school. If that total number makes sense that they could go to Tippett, it makes sense to change the middle school zone for Tippett, because now Carver has a more, everyone in the Carver zone would go to Tippett instead of splitting between Tippett and Wagner. If that number doesn't make sense for Tippett's capacity, then we would leave it out zone to Wagner.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So what is the yellow box?
That's just to focus on this area. That just means look right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at that going, what?
Yeah.
Across the
This-
street, but what is with
all of
those?
this is just outside. We're looking at this area right here as the zone for these students who all go to
Okay.
Harvard from the Williams is obviously arguably the school that needs outside of Wolf Ranch. We would leave by opening a new school, but until we get the chance to open a new school on the east side, which we desperately need, in elementary school, the change for Williams is Harvard. It's the option. Okay. Good question. Yellow box. Should have started with that. So every time you see a yellow box, it means look.
Or yellow circle?
Look, our yellow circle. Yellow means look here. Look at this side. Okay, we do have an opportunity to also, we just call this one a logical move. It doesn't really support a relief necessarily. It does, like down the long road, it would give Carver some capacity if we needed to continue to move students from Williams. But there's a little area north of, so east of Inner Loop, right here. Specifically, this area right here is called Georgetown Place. I believe it's mostly apartments there. And they're currently zoned to Carver, yet they like look out their window and they see Pearl Elementary School, right? It didn't make, so there's not a lot of, it doesn't impact this same middle school feeder pattern, everything. It would just cause them to go to Pearl where it's easy.
Is that Quill Valley?
Quill Valley's on this side. So Quill Valley already goes to Pearl.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're side by side, yes, ma'am. Okay. And we are looking at relieving Mitchell. Mitchell needs capacity relief. So the area that is, again, inside the yellow look here box, this is the current Mitchell zone, right, all the way up here. We're looking at zoning this area west of road escape here. Interloop, thank you, to go to Pearl. And you can see a sampling of the neighborhoods that would affect right there. This would change the feeder pattern. They would now go to Tippett instead of Wagner, so that it inflates Tippett's numbers a little bit, but Tippett has the capacity. And you'll see in a minute in the middle school numbers, the middle schools balance out really well with this plan. So we're looking to get that number specifically so that the principal at Tippett can have that in the factor. Okay. And of course, our programming considerations here are still blue language and grandfather. All right, so the good news is we buy some capacity with this plan until 2025 for Williams, which we know arguably it's right around the corner. The opening of another East Side Elementary School is, in my opinion, going to be how we continue to keep Williams from blowing back up. Otherwise, the rest of the schools, Mitchell gets a lot of good relief. Wolf Ranch is fine for a little while. It'd be fall of 27 before we could open another elementary school, provided we were able to start. Leave that one there for a minute. Question? And then it was asked that we represent the economically disadvantaged percentages as we present this information. So that final column is, this graphic, the way we read this graphic is, if this was how we were zoned today, this is how these numbers would look. Right, that's how I understand this graphic. So if we were already operating in this zone, because we know these kids now, right? This is like conflict choice information. But it's a very close approximation of what the distribution of economically disadvantaged students would be. And I'm going to go to middle school. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. I do believe you will get a copy of this presentation. Linda said.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah. Just know that tomorrow will be different, right? So, keep that in mind.
So which ones are, based upon the numbers that you have, and I understand what you're saying, based upon the numbers, and I meant to bring my sheet with where we're sitting right now, which ones are seeing significant changes?
Can I owe you that? I didn't bring that with me, the comparison, but I can't get that to you. Yeah, I wish I would have that.
Yeah, so did I meant to.
That's a good question. Yeah, this is what they would be as if they were today. We could look at what they actually are today. I don't have graphics for that. All right, let's look at middle school. This is the big picture of middle school. Obviously, with the elementary plan, we're going from 10 zones to 11 zones. With elementary, in the middle, we're going from 4 to 4. We're just moving into middle school, right? Green would be the new Vanol zone. So it takes, just as a quick reference, I'll show you zoomed in, this green line is the current Tippett zone. This is the area of Tippett that would go to Vanol. I'll give you a point of reference. So when we look at that, zoom in a little bit, the Vanol will open with roughly 790 students and then continue to grow really quickly. There will be a split feeder pattern between GHS and EDHS. As it stands right now, and then of course the same grandfather consideration, rising educators and their siblings. That could change. That's the consideration we were using.
Can we go outside of our school district boundaries and order bus kids? I'm just wondering how those kids
Yeah.
sound like.
Yeah, we're not, no. Well, Kirby's saying, but maybe I misunderstand the question. Kirby, can you have?
Yeah, so
Like,
we cannot travel outside of our district and transport students into our district.
No, so I'm saying like the
We can
kids that
cross.
live south of the lake that gotta get way up there to the new Knoll, how are they gonna get there on buses?
Oh, okay, talk about if they live down here.
Yeah, so our own buses in our own district, going to our own district, we can.
Yeah, so
go
yeah, they can
outside.
cross.
So if they're coming here, they're going Ronald Reagan up to the new school, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so what is the southernmost end of the Renault?
Here?
Yeah, thank you. What area is that?
Those neighborhoods, I think they're, no, I'm going to left here. Kirby, do you have the neighborhood names? If the question is what are the neighborhood names, I think.
I'm just trying to visualize
Yeah.
what we're talking about and what they're going to be traveling
Do you
to.
remember what those are called?
So, yeah, Waters Oak, all those neighborhoods there, all 29 there. So here's the new interloop where they can cut in. Where those,
Right.
yeah, those 3D houses are kind of right there.
Yeah.
So this is all, would be west of that neighborhood down 20, from that neighborhood down 29.
And then
Yeah.
they run Reagan back.
Yeah, all the way up to Ronald Reagan, which kind of cuts back over here. Our district ends pretty quickly there, as you can see, that's a little cutout of Ronald Reagan's up there. So, so those are all those kind of water neighborhoods there.
And the short version of why that is there below 29, if that question kind of comes up and maybe on someone's mind. Without doing that, we don't have enough capacity relief for Tippett. And there's, that's really nowhere else to draw from. And it keeps it consistent with the San Gabriel Elementary Zone. So we're supposed to have those neighborhoods are both San Gabriel and Clinton. So it's a little far, but it does give everyone the right enrollment numbers.
Okay, so I'm sorry for the questions, but what area there would go to Eastview then? Because I see.
Don't know yet. We don't know yet. That's not something we haven't really talked about. Instinct tells me the area that's currently in the Tippett zone makes the most sense just from a roads perspective. Right? And proximity perspective.
And real quick, it's Crescent Bluff, Waters Oak, and Shadow Canyon. Those are the three.
Okay, thank you.
And there are some multifamily that's being built in there that's still kind of in the process.
We need to mention this piece, even though it's only a couple of students, you know, give or take, depending on who. That's, there's a little area that dog legs up in the Knoll, kind of, you have to drive through it to get. We're gonna go ahead and make a contiguous zone out of that. That's basically the airport, and no kids live at the airport, so that'll all be airport zones. Well, thank you. And then this is our plan currently to relieve Wagner by zoning some students to Tippett. Approximately 135 students in the tier of this area. This is the current boundary in green. This will be the new boundary. These kids will now go to Tippett instead of Wagner. And the feeder pattern is state remains Wagner. So a little pressure relief for Wagner until the much needed middle school on the east side comes open in the future, because that area is going so fast as you guys have seen in the market before. There's not a lot of other places to put students in the south right now without middle schools.
Is that going to provide enough relief? When you're talking 135, we're
Also
already
remember-
looking at 300 kids different from where they are right now.
Enough is a relative term. Do you want to actually kind of show the,
Yeah, I will. And I want to remember a couple of slides back, I talked about this area right here that's under consideration by our norm. Like, what is this number may also include in that zone? So if that number could go up. But and then this is where we're also rezoning students from Wagner Forest. So it's not just those 135 get an additional. I don't have the number of students here, unfortunately, to say exactly what the number is.
it shows 77.
What is it? Approximately 71 north, but I think there was some, I guess I did count that lower edge. So yeah, so this is you see the green line currently is Wagner, what is baby blue and all forest, so they get additional pressure relief going into the forest. So graphically,
Ms. Malden, it's worth mentioning that portion that we were rezoning to Tippett. There's a decent number of multifamily that's under construction there, so we feel like, based upon the growth of that area, that area would be pretty significant moving into Tippett.
so
We'll be just exasperating the problem of moving them if they were moving to Wagner.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So this what if plan looks like we get some good balance through 2027. Roughly about the time we end up in middle school, good. And hopefully, oh yeah, here it is. You can see the economically disadvantaged balance as it before it's made. But I don't have the comparison on that, so I would leave that.
Wait, what's the 5, 6, 7, 8 on the bottom one? Got a breakdown of numbers.
This
Yeah.
is the percent of economically disadvantaged students.
The 5, 6, 7, 8. Is that
Grade levels 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh yeah, the way you represented it.
Wait a second, are we changing grades on this
Yeah, look at this column right here, is the more appropriate column, is 6 through 8, 6, 7, 8.
But I get it, you gotta know the 5th graders to
Correct,
project.
because it's a what if today, yeah.
I did go to a middle school
As
that
if
started
they
in
were
5th
coming.
grade, and it was terrible to have 5th graders with 8th graders.
Yeah,
just
for all those watching, we're not bringing 5th graders. And keep this in Parliament. Don't want that out there. Okay, so considerations, obviously, grandfathering exemptions as usual. We're still looking at the socioeconomic makeup of the different areas to see if we can continue to create what we can with regards to the balance. Program placement, major considerations. Where our dual language students go, where our PCS, ILC students. Very much the work of this week is that. We're having board workshops, input online, PTA meeting in November. We're going to meet with all the council PTA representatives, and then the campus hosted events. We know we'll be sending out targeted information to families that are affected, distributing information through the campuses, the press releases, web posts, Facebook. Hopefully, if anyone says, I didn't know you were doing that, then we're under a rock, because we're going to cover all the bases outside of the television ad. And then we'll, like I said, we'll meet again on the 8th as an attendance committee and talk about updates from what they saw last Wednesday, how we're going to go about getting that and sharing that community input and the rest of the things that you saw. with that,
Okay, let me
I
try.
pause.
Oh, go ahead.
Who's on, I was gonna ask that, who's on the attendance committee? Who's that?
Can you just in general share the numbers of parents?
Yeah, roughly 10 community member parents and 15 staff members, mostly principals. And then, of course, then our director of guidance and counseling, counseling wellness, guidance wellness. Tiffany Walker, federal programs is on there. Who else from the district? Obviously, the strategists, Kirby, transportation representative.
We fully acknowledge that attendance zones tend to be uncomfortable decisions for families, and I have high confidence in our team, and I just want to thank Landon and Kirby in particular of not just being specific about the zones, but also listening to families as we go through the process. So there's lots of opportunities to provide feedback.
The parent representation was sent to us by the schools that are most affected by the zoning. Yeah, I was thinking that might be a better way to qualify it. They told us there's some actively engaged moms and dads that are eager to participate in the conversation, and so we have a good turnout from that. And they get basically a lot of good voice on Wednesday. Got lots of good notes, and taking those into consideration, make some adjustments. You bet. Great question.
Okay, we are going to transition into our board workshop board training. Very 19 minutes, good job.
I might have taken that side bet as well, but
You want to introduce yourself? You want me to?
Well, yeah, you go ahead. I'll introduce myself, but let's let them know.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, trustees, if you don't mind introducing yourselves.
Okay.
And
We had a chance to talk. We have similar lawnmowers. Yeah, we know that.
Stephen Bell, and I'm a certified financial planner, and I've lived in Georgetown so long, I'm ancient Georgetown.
I'm Jen Malden, and I was a part of the school district for 15 years in another school district, so I have an education background, which I really love. And I'm now doing a lot of leadership coaching and what works, but I really enjoyed serving on the board. Yeah.
Chief Sheriff on the board, year and a half now, have business background.
Cody Hurd, also on the board for about a year and a half, have multiple businesses in the area, 2 kids in the district.
Elizabeth McFarland on my second term on the board. 2 kids that graduated from the district, 2 kids still in the district.
Anthony Blankenship, lived in Georgetown for around 20 years now. First year on the board. I have a sophomore at Eastern High School, so class of 2026, and class of 2028 daughter.
I'm Stephanie Blank. I've lived here for 43 years. My kids have gone through. I've got 3 grandboys here. I'm retired from the school district as well, and I'm involved in almost every nonprofit in town.
That's got to be a lot of nonprofits, I'm thinking.
There's a lot going on here.
Yeah, we go ahead, remind me.
Okay, I'm Lindsay Harris, and I work in leadership and culture.
Terry Conrad in brand design.
Technology, innovation, all things sports.
Gotcha. I've got to tell you, as I walked in after 772 board meetings and workshops in my career, and 8 bond elections and 10 rezonings. I have no connection to what you are talking about, and my blood pressure is just going up. Wait a minute. This is not, I just instinctively, and I will tell you this, that as soon as you said Shonda, for whatever it's worth, this is unsolicited, my blood pressure went down a little bit. Bob Templeton was kind of like the grandfather or father of demography in Texas, and I worked for Bob Templeton. It was just Bob Templeton, and then I worked for the first company that he started that he sold, its school district strategies, and then now he's back with his office. You have a good demography, right? That's what I'm saying. That's unsolicited, but you have a really good demography. I have never been to a zoning committee meeting that there were not community members or public comments, and so that's a wonderful attribute. I think trust to the process, and when I arrived in Sherwood Civil, Universal City, I think it's a matter of public record, so I'm not speaking out of turn, but I had to fire the monitor for bad information and rezone Steele High School, which was brand new because it was going to fill up in like 35 minutes. You know, and the other one was going to have a big, you know, it was still going to be vacant. And to exacerbate that and complicate it, Steele High School won a state championship in football like the year I arrived. Yeah, so we're rezoning the year after winning a 5A. There was no 6A then, but so we won the big show, and now I'm rezoning. So anyway, we had 372 public comments that night, and I was counting. I took my shoes off, I got a chair, took tie off, someone gave me a cold rag finally to put around my neck. And that was like 8 months into the brand new gig. The honeymoon officially ended that night. I was there 11 and a half years. I'll just let the record show I was there 11 and a half years after that. But I remember texting my wife and saying, you know how you still have some stuff that's not unboxed from the move? Like, just leave it boxed. Let's just see how the next month goes after this rezoning before we completely unpack. Which I guess I'm introducing myself.
Yes.
Okay. So started out as superintendent in Graham Independent School District, where I now live now, which is 3 hours and 56 minutes from here. I left this morning, was a beautiful sunrise coming through the beautiful hill country down 281, cutting across on 29. I started my career there, had a curriculum background initially, and then went to work as the CFO. When we couldn't find a CFO, so I said I would do it. That launched me, I guess, into becoming a deputy superintendent. And a couple of years later, I took the family to Fredericksburg, actually, I remember it well, to camp for the summer, for 2 or 3 weeks in the summer, and the board president called and said, hey, you get back for the board meeting. We're going to name you superintendent. I was like, I did not apply to be superintendent, sir, with all due respect. Like, oh no, we're not going to open it up. We're just naming you. And I was like, so all I can do is this? And he said, no, we're not asking. Just get in your truck and come back to the ground. And so anyway, my father has been, I'm sure, a series of disappointments with my children ever since that day. It's an interesting gig, you know, and I started it at 31 years old. Went to Crowley ISD in South Fort Worth after that, Glass Grove District first. I started at Bob Thompson on about the third day there, growing about 1,000 kids a year, constantly zoning and recalibrating. And this is unsolicited, but truthfully, like the questions you're asking and trying to, like you can move one step easily, but it's like, what's the second step and what's the third step? You know, like, what's the dominant exactly? So all that information, I don't know who you are. That was a really clear, coherent presentation. And yeah, I was just giving you kudos. I was impressed. And again, unsolicited, but I was impressed. Then I wound up for my last 11 and a half years at Church Civil Universal City, just as you're going into San Antonio, where you probably should slow down. There's several little cities that balance their annual budget on tickets on I-35.
It's been that way a long time.
Yeah, it's just a fact. I mean, it's just a fact. And I had heard that they would set a Selma police officer up on the overpass right by the Hooters. Okay, see, people are knowing their head over there. So they've experienced that. And then they have them queued up at the entrance ramp. Yeah, they just shoot the number and just line them up. That's just a fact. We're not having nothing sound like that's your business strategy. That's your business strategy. In the course of that time period of being the superintendent, I was fortunate enough for 2 or 3 things that I think that are germane to today's topic that were part of my experience. When I became the superintendent in Graham at 31 years old, reluctantly, my father was a retired football coach, and if you're familiar with that part of Northwest Texas, Graham and Breckenridge, Texas, are like 30 miles apart. The Clear Fork and Brazos River is the demarcation line between them. Our family ranch from the 1830s was half of it was in Stevens County and half of it was in Young County. So we literally lived on the school district line. But my father had retired as a football coach and had opened an insurance business in Breckenridge, which is what retired coaches do. And he became a school board president. And so I'm superintendent at Graham, that other town over there, Arrival and all that. And I can do what any respectable 32-year-old does. I help my dad on Saturdays down on the ranch, right? But so I'm building fence, and I'm helping move cows around, pick up bags of feed. It's just no brain, just muscle. And at that age, I appreciated that opportunity. But what I found out, like for a year, I had this wonderful opportunity as a brand new superintendent to talk to the school board president with no judgment. Well, there's some judgment with my dad. straight talk, just straight talk, right? Like no love. No, you're my client, I'm coaching you, like none of that. Just, and he would say, son, I know you just learned that word in your doctoral class, but don't ever say that in a board meeting in your whole life. Like just like that will not impress anyone, it will just make people mad. And I don't remember what it was. Something I remember I just learned. I think I said, I think I said correlation does not equal causation. Yeah, so it wasn't a term, it was the concept. He said, don't ever say that. Never say that. Okay, no, do not. Anyway, I think that really helped me start getting my head wrapped around at an early age that there's different perspectives, and that I'm going to just tell you in classes, training, my formal training, and I'm hearing keep the board out of the weeds, and if the board gets in the weeds, then you're not a strong leader. Like I'm just like that's just the churn that's going in, and then I'm thinking about the 7 people that I now work for and how much respect I have for them in the community of Graham, and I had before I became their number one employer. So I early on, I guess I was motivated to try to find this harmony, between what were my peers. And what's interesting is that people that, when I became superintendent, that worked for me were the people that I worked with for a couple of years, and then were the people I worked for 10 years. I worked for them for 10 years, with them for 2 years, and I'm their boss. And watching their mindset change towards me with respect to the board, when I'm, in those 3 years, was really fascinating. Just like all of a sudden, it's, you got to manage the board, you got to handle the board, you got to right, and it's just like, really? And truthfully, we didn't get a skill set for that in our formal learning. I don't know if you did that in your training, but we really did not get a skill set delivered to us in our formal training on this board superintendent thing. We just kind of have to figure it out. And so anyway, that I think that helped me a lot with my pattern. So in way of introduction, one other thing. During my last 5 years of 11 years at SCUC ISD, Church Civil Universal City Independent School District, we had letters on the bus, front to the back, and we didn't dare abbreviate anything. I was fortunate enough to get appointed by brand new elected Governor Abbott to be on the teacher retirement system, which you will probably receive. Isn't it great that, yeah, I know, but the day that it hits, it feels good just that.
Vote for Prop 9.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I think that that's a very appropriate, my mom texted me on the way. Did you vote? Prop 9? I got 10 other people to vote for Prop 9. So I was superintendent, and then when I walked into the teacher retirement system door, I was a board member. Like that second my foot crossed the threshold, I was a board member. And truthfully, a lot of what we're going to potentially talk about today was our materials whose genesis is back to me trying to be a better board member on the TRS board. And I'm going to tell you, I rolled into TRS hot. I felt like the people that helped me get that appointment, I owed them a mandate. They had a mandate with me to make certain things happen. And when I say I rolled in hot, I rolled in not thinking strategically, but really thinking tactically. right? And my day job is all in the tactical realm, so it was real natural for me to just roll in there and just want to start telling them, you know. And whether I was right or whether I was wrong, I still think I was right, but most of the things that I was had issues with didn't matter. If I came in hot tactically, there were systems that had been in place there forever that whether I'm right about it being incorrectly designed or not, it doesn't matter. I'm creating so much anxiety and wobble in the system that ultimately is detrimental, right? And so I had to learn to think strategically. Now, I will tell you this, TRS, seventh largest pension fund in the world, did not have a strategic plan. They had a compliance document that they had to submit to the comptroller's office or the governor's office or both every year, and they did do that. But it was not a strategic plan. I was right about that. And of course, I got punished. I became the chair of the brand new commission strategic planning committee for the teacher retirement system. And for me, that wasn't punishment. That was kind of like throw me in the burner. Like that's where I want to be. And so they do have a strategic plan now, and it does drive their work, just FYI. But that initial training to be a tactician, but then also think about, you know, this seventh largest pension fund strategically is really where a lot of this work started. Also during that time period, I was fortunate enough to board in Crowley ISD. When I became superintendent there, I was only the second superintendent that district had ever had, and my predecessor was superintendent for 51 years.
Oh.
He was superintendent for 51 years, not employee for 51 years. So they had gone from about 800 kids to 15,000. He was very old, I saw what you said.
Well, you don't see when you started.
We started
It's
very
15,
young.
yeah.
We started very young. He was a tad long in the tooth at retirement. But so from 500 kids to 15,000 kids growth, or 12,000 kids growth, and like no systems, nothing had changed in 51 years. And in fact, you know, arguably, like he didn't even know where some of the elementaries were located. Like when he was going to drive me around, and it's like, I don't know if that's ours or that's, you know, everyone's not. Like I had the map, I'm pretty sure it's ours. I didn't say that. All right. So but my point with all that is there's lack of systems, right? Just nothing systematic, no strategic direction. And so the board they were understanding of that. They said, you need to really think about how we accelerate systems thinking. Like that was literally what they said when they hired me, which is not that. Like we've got to have an accelerator here, which in my mind I was thinking that means I'm only going to be here for a year or two. But I was there 7 years. But so I became a national Baldrige examiner at that time because I just Googled or whatever you did at that time on the fancy new internet. I looked up systems thinking and Baldrige popped up. It was interesting coming in on 29. I think the first Baldrige training that I attended was at the First Baptist Church in Georgetown because somebody that was a Baldrige examiner.
St. David's was big Baldrige.
Wait, that was it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
somewhere over there,
Yeah.
I went to Baldrige training 2 or 3 times. Okay. Well, yeah, but somebody was a parishioner there, so we trained in one of those churches. And you're right, St. David's was kind of the reason that it was happening here. And that experience, I'm not saying that everybody should go through the Baldrige process. But I'm just letting you all know, in addition to being a superintendent, I became a national Baldrige lieutenant. So truthfully, like this work is the intersection of me trying to figure out how to be a good board member at TRS, Baldrige framework, Phil Selecti, which I think this district has some experience with. I went through all the Phil Selecti training. The CEO of Mo Casey was indeed with Phil Selecti. And then just the Harvard Business School, just looking at, I mean, I'm kind of nerd out on the Harvard Business Review every month. I can't wait to get the actual magazine and read it, even though all is online. But so we just tried to lay all that on top of each other and look for common threads. And that's really where this model, I guess, came about. So if I understand, you're going to get Team of 8 credit, you're going to get ISO credit, whatever you need for those things. I'm certified to give you those credits. I'm not going to click through a PowerPoint, even though maybe the first time you ever got credit for something without going through a PowerPoint. And yes, I believe you can stay awake and still get ISO credit. I firmly believe that you can stay awake during ISO credit. You'll see here in a little bit why I feel comfortable with getting the ISO credit, because the ISO credit is just clarity about an action is an input, and then you measure an input with an output along the way, but then it should lead towards an ultimate outcome eventually. So the formula on evaluating and improving student outcomes is just action is input, output, how we measure it along the way, outcome, how we measure it. So there's your 30-second summary of what ISO training is. We'll circle back around to that in a little bit. But all of these, the work today that we're talking about, just anchors back to those with not necessarily more emphasis placed on one thing than the other. I'll pause right there. Did I miss anything that you think or what you know about me that?
No, I think it's a great point.
I'm not here to tell you how to think. I think I've been hired to come here and tell you what I think you should think about. Is that fair enough? Your district, bunch of people coming in, a bunch of moving parts. For me to come in here and say, this is what I think you need to think about, I mean, this is how you need to be thinking, it's silly. For me to come in here and say, from a strategy standpoint, this is what I think you should be thinking about, that's my lane. That's what I do. So I want, if you're craving some specificity or the guy to bounce in here and say, here's your 10-step plan for future success, first time last year, you're not going to get it. I'm going to give you some questions and not necessarily some answers, but we can talk through where those might lead eventually. This is like the worst idea on earth, but I'm going to do it anyway. In your packet, there's a good governance inventory. Before I dig in, I think it's 3 or 4 pages deep in there.
Yes.
Pop quiz, that's all. Before I maybe skew the answers with bias based on what we're saying, I want to just capture this information. I would like this to be anonymous. And then trustees, let me, 6, 7, all 7 are here. It's y'all's call if you want Dr. Paddle to take it. It's been here long enough to take it, or in other words, do you want it to be 7 or do you want it to be 8?
Sure, you can take it.
Okay, right. Okay.
This is gonna be all don't know.
Could be the question. Well, then, yeah, they're saying that there's some trustees who are relatively new, and there isn't. Okay, on the bottom right-hand corner, if you don't mind, don't put your name on it. I want it to be anonymous, but I want to hand them back to you here in just a little bit. If you'll put some symbol in the bottom right-hand corner that you can identify, but we can keep it anonymous that way. Like, for me, it would be my brand. I have 25 cows. My brand is Wayne Ranch, LTD. I would have it. I could do my brand. That wouldn't mean anything to you. Just to go with your gut, this is a perception survey. Some of the terminology may be unfamiliar. That's fine. The responses are yes, no, and don't know. 18 responses around 6 indicators. Check mark or an X is fine.
You're making Michelle do the tallying.
But that way we can
Anybody else want to walk?
I got plenty.
we can keep plodding along that way, and then we'll debrief that at the end. And just think, and and by the way, we're going to start right here. Earlier in my introduction, I should have mentioned the U.S. Army War College as well, because there's a piece of this, a big piece of this, structurally, that's structured after military constructs. I think, if you all go to TASB training or, SLI or, whatever, and there's going to be some workshop, that says, boards, don't get in the weeds or stay above the line or, like all, and so if you had to have a line, that maybe you're being trained, is this line between strategic and tactical. It's definitely this line between strategic, tactical, and operational. Whereas we think that is a valid construct to say board members, stay below or stay above the line. Come on, move this up just a tad. I'm trying to save your minute. We're out of here, though. Is that better?
Thank you.
You're welcome. We believe strongly, probably the most important, this is a simple model, but there's a lot packed in here. It's good that probably, and I'm assuming, Dr. Pavel, we have tactical team members and some tactical team leaders right here. Okay. And if I was going to divide the tactical team, it would probably divide between senior leader team and mid-level managers. I'm submitting that for review right now with our design team because senior leader team members oftentimes interact with the board as evidenced by them sitting where they're sitting right now. And then mid-level managers, whereas they are part of the tactical team, sometimes there's some translation from the senior level team to the senior level leaders of the tactical team. There's some translation to the mid-level, then it gets translated to the front line, if that makes sense. And so the concept here is military, but it turns out that this is a pretty much widely believed Harvard Business School, a number of strategy business coalition, that whether it's a profit or non-profit, governmental or non-governmental, if it has a board, then this is a relatively good structure. To not oversimplify it and just say board members don't ever go below this line. If you like, there's actually three components here. Now, what I would argue is, and this is what I had to remember, I rolled into TRS, not up here. I rolled in right here and even arguably into here, right? Like I'm getting into the operational stuff. And I'm going to say this, and I'm just going to tell you I'm going to use the word suck. So I know it's being filmed, but that's just common vernacular. What shocked me about it is who it came from. So I'm on a TRS board, second board meeting, asking questions. I'm all down here, right? I'm just in this space. Joe Collinetta, who's one of the finance, probably big donor to Governor Abbott Perry, and he's an appointee. Also, you don't know that that's how the system works. Big donors wind up on. Okay, I didn't know if y'all knew that or not. Yeah. Oh, you don't know that? Okay, so and I love Joe to death, and I didn't know him when he said what I'm about to tell you. He told me I did not know him well at all. And yet, 14 years later, I can appreciate what he said, and again, our good friends. But he saw me get up on that third, I think it's that second, I think it's the third TRS board meeting, and I went over to get coffee, and so like you're filmed here, and there's a coffee pot. You get off camera, but you still have a broken quorum because you haven't left the room, because you're technically still in the meeting, even though you're off camera, which we have a little rule that just don't break quorum on camera, you know, even if you're standing in the coffee pot. Yes, because people were saying, you're meeting without a quorum. No, 8 of us are standing at the coffee pot. You know? Yeah, it's not a good look on camera. But I went over and I noticed Joe got up and he followed me. And Mr. Collins had said, hey Greg, like I can't, like you're bringing in some really, really good points. Like my chest just kind of like second meeting, dean of the thing is telling, yeah, like I'm feeling good. And I remember him stirring coffee, you know, and he said, in fact, I can't argue with one thing you said. Like, if it was possible, my chest went out even further. And then he dropped the stick in the trash can, he turned around and he said, the way you're going about it sucks. And he went and sat down over at the coffee pot, like, oh, what just happened? You know, like very, like just completely deflated. But he and I had dinner that night, and he basically, he's not using these terms, but he, like you're just asking the right question, but you're unintentionally offending hundreds of people watching online. Like, and that is, I know that's not your intention, but I'm telling you that's what you're doing. And he was right. He was exactly right. And so I had to think about how, I felt like I had a mandate for something to happen fast on the things that the people that helped me to get there. And I remember texting them saying, this is good, after Mr. Connelly gave me some straight talk. I said, this is going to take a while, I'm apologizing. And I'll never forget, like 5 people I texted said, we never expected you to move the needle fast. We just want you to be a good decision maker on board. See, I thought I had to deliver something for them. They just wanted a decision maker that they felt like aligned more to their decision making. And I was like, oh, well, that's not the way I felt, you know, but that term. So it allowed me to get out of this as a board member and get up into the strategic role. Now, the one thing that Joe Colonetta and I worked on my whole time on the board was the manner in which the tactical team reviewed what was really going on with the board. What I observed, and I'm going to go back to my dad, and PowerPoint was just starting when I became a superintendent. So, you know, it was pictures on the screen. And I just remember him saying, if I have to see another picture of a student in science goggles eating birthday cake as a representation of everything's good in Breckenridge ISD, I'm going to throw up. I mean, I'll never forget him saying, and then by the way, PR people, there's nothing wrong with pictures of kids being happy or whatever. But what he was saying is, don't try to tell me with pictures and words something that's quantifiable. That I want to see the pictures and words as the board president, but I need to see the directional number to know that what we've adopted as strategy is headed in the right direction. And if it's not headed in the right direction, I want you to tell me it's not headed in the right direction sometime before August, when the state tells me that it was headed in the wrong direction the whole time. And the earlier the better. I'll never forget, some of you, I'm not that age demographic where you watch The Godfather 20 times. But you remember Robert Duvall wiping his mouth and must return home. My boss insists on hearing bad news immediately, right? Like middle of dinner on a plane. Forget the horse head in the bed later that night.
That's always what comes to mind.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. It's later that night. But the point is, and what my dad was saying is, as soon as you know that something's not headed in the right direction, share it. And give us a heads up before we hear the end of your measure, or even worse, the end of strategic plan measure later. And so, all to say, that takes trust to be able to design that system, right? So it takes trust for the tactical team. Within the tactical team, there has to be trust. Within the board team, there has to be trust. But more importantly, between these two teams, there has to be trust that no one in each of these roles would try to weaponize data against another team member. And that happens all over the state, Valley. Another shock report. People, superintendents do not disclose data because for fear of it being weaponized against them or their team. Fair enough? I mean, like that's, we see it, but, so one thing is like a big, like rock. It could be, big rock in the bucket first, is there has to be trust within this team, trust within this team, and then trust between these two teams. If you want to design a system where we're going to tell the truth. We're going to tell the truth early rather than later. Dr. Cuddle, does anything resonate with you with regards to the three essential roles? And I might ask the trustees also.
I'd like to give the response.
Make sense? No?
So, a couple of us have military background.
Okay.
And I think that that's intuitive to us because we operate under that. But
Yeah.
I'd like to hear if it makes sense to those who may not do.
I didn't realize there were some in military background, so like this makes total sense, right? Like generals, lieutenant colonels, captains, soldiers on the front, right? The generals came, let's pull that string just a little bit. So, we're gonna make some assumptions here. Like they were at the Pentagon and they haven't been in the field in a while, right? So they're in a think tank, right? Basically. Now, smart people, like, just advanced degrees, just everywhere. The thing is, when I'm going to use this, and it's probably partially true, but I've had generals tell me this. So a lot of times, mission is being set from satellite images. And the lieutenant colonel or the captain on the ground in Kuwait, sir, with all due respect, I know that looks like 5 clicks. But if you knew what was between point A and point B, we would not be trying to go from point A to point B. So see, it's back to that tactical team, the eye down, like closer to the ground. And we would assume, we hope, that those lieutenant colonels and captains and this group also are listening to this group. Now in the military, there's a lot of telling this group what to do. But the smart ones in this group, I think, learn how to listen to this group also, right? They know where the booby traps are because they learn to listen to that front line. So fair enough? I see you smiling. So
Yeah, in the Army, we call that echelons above reality. Echelons above reality.
All right.
Something you said,
I love it.
Just as far as you were talking, something that just became real clear to me is between each of the roles, I feel like a big responsibility, even though I'm only 3 months in, is how do we communicate with clarity? What do we expect of each role, right? I think a lot of us are just care deeply about this district, and so I think that's a double-edged sword, right? People are going to put in max effort, but the downside of that is it's max effort, right?
Yeah.
And so we're working really hard to meet an expectation that isn't fully expressed or clear.
Yeah.
Like, I think, a conversation that will evolve is what does the board expect of me? A conversation that will evolve is for the folks in the tactical role. Are we clear on what's expected, what they think I expect? And then for everyone in the operational role, are they clear on what's expected? Because at the end, I think the right term you used was outcome.
Yeah.
But we can't control the outcome, we can control the process. And at the end of the year, we want to ask ourselves, we want to be able to tell ourselves, we gave it everything that was expected.
Right. Well, there are several assumptions here that I think align that the majority, if not everyone in Georgetown ISD's workforce is working very hard. Okay, so that's not the question. The question is, are we working hard at the right stuff? And I'm here to say that you need to think about harmony between these three roles. tell you exactly how to get there, but does it make sense that there needs to be, Covey calls it a cadence of accountability. So you need a cadence of accountability. Some of the speed of trust, which is kind of a spin-off on how do you build trust to have a cadence of accountability. The classic Covey work is 4 disciplines of execution. How do you set a strategy up here and then see if it's all the way to the front line being executed? You know, that's the 4 disciplines of execution. So, you're making me kind of go to this model in my mind, because I think, like, you all see these arrows going back and forth, you know, the superintendent, by the way, if you're sitting at this table, you're in this side box. So it says superintendent there, but it's whoever, you know, works directly with trustees to provide information, like, okay, so that puts you, and it may be that you live there all the time, and maybe that you live there sometimes, but I want to make sure that's real clear. But the employee of the board is, you know, the superintendent, but then you've got some others that are in this box. I've got to tell you one quick additional tidbit of information on this before we look at these aligned arrows. This structure I learned from the military helped me realize I needed to check myself, especially in a larger district like SCUC, about how the protocols I was using to get directly into the classroom. So see, everyone, you know, we want the superintendent to be an instructional leader, we want them in the classroom, and I'm like, to do what? You know, and finally the answer was to take pictures that go on Twitter. All right, I can do that. I have no problem with doing that, but y'all are throwing me in there and you're throwing a rubric in my hand that's aligned for our walkthrough. I haven't been trained in it. But it looks, no, I'm not part, I'm happy to become a part of that process if that's what you want to do, but we've got 7 boundary zonings to have, but you know, I'll still kick a couple of those over to the side and I'll come learn how to, okay, I'm going to make someone mad with what I say, and I apologize.
That's not the mad face.
So if it was pictures for Twitter, yeah, I'll go all day long, but am I really a part of the instruction process when we have curriculum coordinators, you know, and so see, again, it was me, you know, jumping into that operational role, and I asked some of the curriculum coordinators, what do you think about me? Like, be honest, like, what do you think? And they were like, it kind of offends us when you're in there, when we've been working on all these protocols, and then they just throw you in there, like we've been training everybody for a full year to do that, but you're just going to somehow miraculously have all the information. It's like, thank you for an honest response, because that's what I was thinking. So my point with that is there can be harmony between these 3 roles without it all being mushy. See, sometimes when people start saying we're going to build structure, oh, we're going to get walls up. But no, let's stay in the role. Like, I've got my tactical hat on, it's a board meeting, we've got to communicate. Board members, do you want documents that are 50 pages long, or do you want a 1-page executive summary of the 50 pages? Okay, every one of them, let the record show, every one of them, because now, if we're doing training to the operational role, we probably need all 50 pages, because they're going to ask every question, so we're trying to anticipate that. So the way this team communicates up and down, if you want to look at it graphically, it is different. And we have a tendency to just bring the communication that we've already shared with one level of the other. Okay. So having said that, now we've got these arrows, there's arrows everywhere here, I apologize, but this is about strategic direction, so arrows help. So if you think about your organization in total, not one department, not the board, the tactical role, or the strategic role, but if you think about it in total. And I love this graphic because I think everybody aspires to be a stage 4 organization. Collins and Good to Great has a different terminology for, I can't remember but when the flywheel is spinning, whatever that term is, that everybody aspires hired, 4 disciplines of execution we're trying to get. So stage 1 is reacting to problems. And so when, as humans, when we look at those arrows going in a bunch of different directions, we have a tendency, I think, maybe it's our, innate fallibility that we make a judgment call about those arrows. And so that one's right, that one's wrong, that one's good, that one's bad. I want you all to understand that there's a positive presupposition that there are no bad actors in any of those arrows. They're doing what they think they should be doing. And everybody's working as hard as they can work. And I think if this printed in color for you, some of them are blue, some of them are black. If you notice, okay, like my 9 goes to, so some of them are instructional, some of them are operational. That's the blue and the black, maybe, I don't know, or that's this campus, that's that campus. So I know you all know how to read, but would someone read the stage 1, the caption down below stage 1? Please, trustees.
Sure, I will. Work is characterized by activities rather than by processes, and they are largely responsive to immediate needs or problems. Goals are poorly defined.
Okay. And then, I think everyone would assume we want to try to move from stage 1 to stage 2. Maybe this district has already. But would another trustee read the caption below stage 2, and then everyone listen to what's the difference between 1 and 2. So underline the words if you would like. Any trustee?
Organization is beginning to carry out repeatable processes, evaluation, and improvement, and there is some early coordination among organizational units. Strategy and quantitative goals are being defined.
Okay, what are the key words that are emerging here, or key concepts?
Goals are defined.
Goals
Yeah.
being defined, or being defined, okay, whatever.
Repeatable process.
Repeatable.
Are evaluating and adjusting where we see.
Yep. So now, stage 3, you want to read stage 3?
Sure. Stage 3, processes are characterized by repeatable steps that are regularly evaluated for improvement. Learnings are shared, and there is coordination among organizational units. Processes address key strategies and goals.
Okay, and then ultimate, I'm sorry. What happened between stage 2 and stage 3?
More of an alignment of your strategies, goals, and processes.
Yeah,
Shared learnings.
shared learning or alignment.
Coordination.
I'm sorry.
Coordination.
Coordination. And then now the kind of power sentence at the end of it is your processes are lining up to those strategies and goals. Notice what happens between stage 1 to stage 2 with respect to the number of arrows. What happened? Count the arrows.
8 to 6.
8 to 6. Now, everyone in the wings are thinking, like, we're going to fire some people. That is not. It is just meant to graphically illustrate that you can achieve efficiencies if you're lining your work up to what there's agreement, what you said earlier, agreement at all 3 levels about what we're trying to accomplish. I hear superintendents all the time say, we're going to do a return on investment analysis, ROI, and I'll say against what? And, well, just, I don't know, we heard it in class, we're just going to do an ROI. So you really can't do ROI if you choose to do that. I'm not saying you need to, but if you choose to do it, you cannot do it unless it's against a clearly set target. Like it's just a fluff exercise. It's giving the appearance that you're doing ROI, not actually doing ROI. All right, and I'll read stage 4. Of course, this is what you're looking for. Processes are characterized by repeatable steps that are regularly evaluated for change and improvement and collaboration with other affected units. The organization seeks and achieves efficiencies across units through analysis, innovation, and sharing of information and knowledge, processes, and measures track progress on key strategic and sustainable goals. And that's everything. That's the whole thing. So let me ask trustees and then anyone else that's in the room that chooses to participate. This is now it's like going to go from theoretical to getting real. So like, where would you quantify as an individual, either trustee or staff member, where Georgetown ISD is? Like, look, don't say it out loud. Just jot it down. Jot it down on your paper. Jot it down.
very low time.
Okay, if you had to average all, yeah, if you had to average
That's
all.
not very nice.
Yeah, I know, I didn't claim I was gonna be nice today, but if you had to average all those together and just say in totality, so just everybody jot it down. You can use fractions and decimals if you choose. Trustees, do you have a number written down? How long have you been there?
3 months.
Have you had enough time to formulate an answer or response to that? I know it'd be early.
I have a draft.
So,
I don't think I've been here long enough.
Yeah, that's kind of what,
These
I
systems.
think that's the right, I think half a year, somewhere in there, like, then you start, 'cause you haven't been to every corner yet, to look in every corner, right?
I mean, I've glanced at everything.
Okay, right. But if we're saying well-defined, repeatable, and all this, like, there's not enough time to know that. And this is just a perception survey anyway, and I guess the first question is, is Georgetown ISD somewhere between 1 and 4? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so like, we'll start with it somewhere. All right, we'll start there. Is Georgetown ISD at 4? Okay, so several, did anybody say yes, at 4, even in the wings? Okay. But, oh, you're scratching it. Okay, I thought you were okay. So is anybody, and let's just do this, there's no right or wrong, it's just perception. Is anybody not to 2? Let me ask it that way. Again, the 1.9, 1.9999. Okay, anybody? Okay, so how many, raise your hand if you're in the 2s, like you're in stage 2. Okay, all right. So in the wings, I don't know if y'all did it, but y'all haven't, you got an opinion? I don't know, opinion. It's a board exercise. Y'all are sitting at the big table, not the kids' table, so y'all have, we're all in the 2. Okay, is anybody like did you grade it out 2.1 or something like, okay, tell me the numbers, tell me.
I said closer to 3 than 2,
Okay.
somewhere in between.
Okay, is anyone closer to 2 than 3, like below 2.5? Okay. So let's do this. So how are you below 2.5 or 2.5 or below, and then how are you, like what are the words or the concepts that kept you from going all the way back to closer to 2? Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, and I think it's only, it's kind of like James pointed out, it depends on the topic, and
Right.
I think that more of our areas are closer to 3, but there are still several that are closer to 2, and so that's why mine edged.
gotcha. And then how would you respond to what she just said?
I think it's just the strategy, quantitative goals, and the definition of clarity from top to bottom.
Gotcha.
I think she's probably right in terms of process and work effort and work product and those type of things. We are probably much more in the 3 realm, but then just the alignment, clarity, and definition of, we produce really high work, and sometimes I feel like we produce that work in silos or bubbles,
Right.
and that
It's not
happens.
integrated.
Yeah, it's not integrated and not necessarily in the strategic line that everything should be moving.
Okay, thank the 2 of you for sharing it. Does anybody hear anything from what the 2 of them share that resonates with you?
I think they both make great points. Similar to Dr. Canada, I've been on the board about 6 months, so I don't necessarily feel I have all the information necessary to be giving out ratings. But from what I've seen, every time we have a board meeting, every time we have a workshop, every time the leadership team presents information, I'm always blown away by how well organized, well presented, how thoughtful it is, the gathering process, the presenting process. Every time I see something, I'm learning, and I'm just really impressed by how much hard work has gone into this. So I'm leaning more toward 3 than 2.
Correct.
That being said, I don't have a ton of experience to say that, it could be done differently. But more often than not, I leave feeling floored by the district.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, I did something a while ago, so I watched the screen while you were talking, but I watched your face. Well, because if you want to know if there's a breakdown in the system, it's when that's going on that screen to what she did, what they do. And you pass. Because well, there's But because that wasn't the first time you had seen it. Okay, that, you would be shocked how many times the first time the curriculum people hear this report is when the board is hearing this report. And I'm only sharing this now because they passed the test. I would have texted you later like that. I didn't even know what was on the screen. Or it'd be my opinion. But to your point, like there was, I'm not just saying this again, but that was like really, really well done. And then I'm looking at their facial expression that, we've heard that stuff so much. We're tired of listening to it. But so it's interesting then I see what we just talked about puts me kind of in mid-2 range, right? I'm going to go on a limb here, hearing what you just said, what y'all just said, what I've witnessed here. Like this is, you probably already know this, but like this is maybe not even good to great, like the book is like really good to really good. German. Is that fair to say, like really good to really great? Because what I'm hearing that's keeping you out of stage 3 is actually not that hard. Like the hard part is the harmony between the departments. Like we get a good strategic direction, but there's disharmony. Because that's almost like behavioral things, and sometimes unfortunately it's entrenched over decades when a new superintendent, like this department hates me. There's nothing to do about it. Every superintendent comes in here and tries to change the culture, and it never changes, and they always hate it. So like that's hard to work on. If you have harmony on these individual units, it's actually low-hanging fruit just to get clarity around what are the targets. Clearly what are the targets. And it doesn't mean like just that department understands it or just that department understands it. It's every department inside the tactical world understands it, and it's adopted by the board, including the outcomes. So it means this communication has to happen a lot between these two. And there's a really good chance that you already have, I think I'll put on the agenda, like you may already have enough strategy written out. So this may not be an effort of writing out strategy, but I think that you don't have to, I'll read it to you, but if you have these in your packet to reflect on later. You don't have to get them right now. Most organizations, Harvard Business School did like a 4-year analysis coming up to 1990, and they identified most organizations have too much or too little strategy. Like rarely do they feel like they have the right amount of strategy. And then there's confusion between a strategic objective and a strategic action. So and this is where you hire consultants and they come in and they do a strategic planning process, and I'm not bad at it, this is my observation. So bring community members in and they write out a bunch of stuff that they want to happen. Like you're in a room like this, and there's just chart paper around the whole room, so the community feels good. The senior leader team felt good at the moment that the community members felt good, and then the second they walked out of the room, their heart was sank to their feet because they looked at everything and they just promised that they were going to get done, and it's not doable. And I would argue, if your experience here is similar to most experience that have gone through something like that, you have all of your key strategic objectives and your key strategic actions to get to those objectives jumbled together. That's really common. Like we don't,
One more time.
so like the objective is what, thank you for asking, that bears repeating. The objective is what the strategic team, that's the mission, to use the military term. That's the big thing we're trying to accomplish. The key strategic action is the tactical team's way to get at positively moving the needle on that board adopted objective. And this confusion and quite frankly, disharmony, even anxiety and even frustration between these two teams oftentimes is track 2, we don't have clarity between a strategic objective versus a strategic action. The objective is what the board should be focused on. What are our big rocks? Y'all can't think of everything there, that y'all have day jobs, most of your peers, right? Okay, most of you, and then those that don't are volunteering for everything on earth, so they're staying busier than the rest of us. But so at this level, if you don't have clarity around these 10, I would say 10 to 12 big objectives that we're trying to accomplish, then, and if you're not getting clear reports from this team on how we're doing on those, then you all get frustrated about, this is why I'm frustrated at TRS. I don't know if we're doing great or not. I see all your PowerPoints with all smiling faces. I still don't know if we're doing well or not. Okay, I'm going to pause and just say, because I just threw a lot out on the table. Well, no, I'm going to pause. Dr. Paddock, like, have I created anxiety? How do you, so Georgetown, do you think? What do you think? Where are we right now?
So this is a strong school district with a lot of strong work taking place, but, I do my 90-day tour, and just one theme that has come up is, she actually just left the room, but, one of our teammates, she just talked about clarity being something that can just help elevate the work taking place.
Okay, that's a great word. So I didn't know that. So clarity came up. So I would argue that there's maybe several ways to define clarity. I think one of the first places that y'all could look is this difference between a strategic objective and a strategic action. Because you may be trying to hold all of those up equally, like they're all of equal importance, and they're not. The objective is the big thing. The actions are the things that the tactical school will do. The other missing piece that may or may not have to do with clarity is the difference between lead measures and lagging measures. Sometimes we get the lead, remember the formula earlier, input, an action is an input, so it's input, output, outcome. Input is action, output is the measure, the easy short measure of is that action working, and then the outcome is that big measure that the board basically is paying attention to. That did we really move the needle? And I have some strong opinions about this, and I know the previous superintendent well enough, and he and I kind of paralleled each other. He was younger than me, but we were superintendents for both of our careers at the same time. And both of us were in work together. Like I was one of the authors of the vision document, if that means anything. Okay, thank you. You and 200 other people in the world. Thank you for one of the 200 of y'all sitting here. But and we all kind of went different ways on what we meant by that. My work as a superintendent is that if we cannot stop the A through F, like I'm going to try to stop it as a superintendent, I'm going to try to stop it. But if we cannot stop it, then I am going to locally try to put that in its place. So like STAR and SCUC was a measure, not the measure for SCUC, if that makes sense, like that. So if I can't stop it, I feel like I needed to try to stop it as a superintendent, and I've worked on that. But if I can't stop it, then I need to make sure it's clear that it isn't just one measure that we're looking at, and we have several other measures that we're looking at. So I don't want you all to think that I'm all jazzed up and hyped up on Mountain Dew and just quant, because a lot of this is qualitative. But you can quantify qualitative information. You can do perception surveys. You can do, yes sir.
What do you think Dad would say about that? What did you say? You can't quantify quality? Say that again?
Okay, yeah.
Remember when your dad said don't ever say that?
Okay. Sorry.
Say the quote again.
All right. We repeat it, but yeah, that's one of them we could have said never say again. Sometimes I think we don't try to quantify, assign a number to something that's a feeling. But there's perception surveys given all the time. People do doctoral dissertations on perception surveys. It's the way to have our finger on the pulse of the staff is through a perception survey. So we can measure that. Now, if all you have is the data, you don't have enough when it comes to your staff. You gotta go out and be face to face. But every once in a while, we should try to quantify, I believe, how our staff is feeling about Georgetown ISD through an official survey. Then we need to do a lot of feedback loops in between. But see, the board, to me, the reason I'm bringing that up as an example, the board needs to see the results of that survey. But that's part of this communication back and forth. And it's funny, like I remember sitting in front of the SCUC board and I was like, yeah, it's our third staff satisfaction survey and we finally hit like 68% out of neutral, which it turns out getting people out of neutral is the hardest thing on earth, right? It's like we did not have high negatives, but we did not have high positives. So we had a bell curve and everybody was parked right in the middle. Shocker, you got to actually get out and talk to them to move them out of the middle. And I remember at the board meeting, I was like, we finally got out, we have 68% in positives. I was feeling kind of good about it. And I just remember my HR director saying, before you break your little pat yourself on the back, your question on the survey is at 52%, so you're actually bringing drag to the system. But and I actually stayed for an extra like 4 or 5 years trying to get those two numbers to the same number. So there was a question in there. I believe in the direction of Superintendent Dr. Greg Gibson. That's one of the questions that I was trying to get that number to at least be the median of the positives. Anyway, I got it and I retired. That was like one of the check marks I was trying to get that. And I walked it in there to the HR director and I had them highlighted and I pitched it down and they're the same. But I started wearing these shoes and I'm not kidding because I had to get out of that central office and get face to face with staff just to get them out of neutral. They were fine with the role I was doing, but they're not going to give a 4 on a 5-point scale with 5 being good unless they knew who I was. Right? Even though we had 2,500 employees, they still needed it. And that's hard to do when you have 2,500 employees. Okay. I heard 1:30 hard stop earlier. I want to see if, let me read the rest of these real quickly. And we've got an hour and we're going to debrief the good governance inventory. I just want to leave with us kind of in a good place. I want to not cram a bunch of stuff right in the last few minutes. I'm going to reread these. So too much or too little strategy, like that's a common challenge for organizations. Let me take these one at a time. If we can just speak freely, do you think you have too much or do you think you have too little strategy or like what's the status of strategy, I guess?
I think it's pretty good. I think we tried real hard not to set too much. We have 4 major strategies, and I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, I agree.
I just wanted to go off topic, but we got that round table at 1:30.
We might have to carve out 5 minutes earlier.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to be late.
We get 1:15 start.
Yeah.
I'll give you plenty of time to take a breath before that next thing. Just for one second. Okay, we're good, 45 minutes. This thing is over in 45 minutes. One opinion of a trustee is that it feels about right, and I've dug into them, so everybody comfortable with using an assumption that it feels about right. Now I'm going to just warn you ahead of time, this is a trick. It's a trick question. Because you're saying you're not for. I'm trying to ask you why you're saying you're not for. So is there confusion between strategic objectives and strategic actions, perhaps? Is there clarity between objectives and actions? Or is that potentially what's leading to a little bit of a wobble here that the arrows aren't lining up?
For me, the wobble is time. I think we've got it all in place, and now the time is going to take care of it. We're starting to repeat the processes. You guys have put in all that hard work to do, and it's all been implemented, and now we're going to start seeing the outcomes.
Very
Yeah,
good.
I agree, like, we're clear, and we've distinguished between the, the objectives and the actions, and now it's just the next step of, and making sure that people truly understand the distinction. We have it in words, but now they need to internalize it.
Do you all, I am going to put you on the spot, but I mean, you can just say, I don't know, as a response to this, okay? That's an acceptable.
He said you could plead the fifth.
Yeah, I think that's right. Oftentimes, I want to use this as an example. So, because my original background was curriculum. Okay, so if you would have asked me when I was a curriculum director what an important outcome for the district was, it would be to have an aligned curriculum. Like I would say that is an outcome. But, and there's a lot of superintendents, by the way, in the state of Texas, they come through the curriculum ranks that agree with that. But the aligned curriculum is really an action towards student instruction as an outcome. Does that make sense? And so that's what I just want to challenge all as you kind of start peeling apart your documents to get greater clarity. The highest performing organization have, on your current, you said 4, what?
Priority areas.
Okay, what are they related to? 4 priority areas? So student.
Student outcomes, staff and student wellness, staff recruitment and retention, and community and connectivity.
Outstanding. Well, just first, sometimes it doesn't have to be this way, but one of those sounded like you had staff and student together. Sometimes it's cleaner in the organization when you start building structure for this to have student outcomes and staff outcomes completely bifurcated from each other. Because when that gets squishy so what I guess what I'm saying is staff wellness, as Herbert said, or well-being is a component of the recruitment and the retention. And then student well-being. So I don't know, but that doesn't have to be that way, but that's just kind of like an initial thought. So do you have clarity between lead measures and lag measures? Like what is a leading measure and what is a lag measure? Just general.
I know what it is in economics, but I don't know what it is in school business.
Okay. So that may be, what I'm saying, like that may be where we are. Because, and the thing is, y'all probably look at 1,000 data points on any given day. So part of what this is also the board a while ago said they wanted the 1-page document, not the 50-page document, right? So it shouldn't be that the board is aware of every lead measure that the district has to offer. It's just the top 10 that align to those objectives. Okay?
But right now, do you guys know what those things we actually want to see are? Or are you guys just guessing and doing a really good job making the presentation because they may want to see all of this?
Yeah.
Because that's my take.
No, they're perfect.
That's what it's talking, there's not goal alignment, there's not clarity, there's not defined. I don't know that it's fair to them all the time because I think they do a great job producing work, and I think they're doing it in the best possible effort and heart. I just don't know that we always do the best job of giving them a very clear picture of what that expectation should have been, or sometimes, I mean, I'll be really convinced, and I'm like, why are we hearing all this crap?
Right.
Sure, there are
Well, they're trying to,
and at the same time, I'm thinking, man, they spent all this time putting this, so that's where I continue to pull the organization as a whole down.
Yeah.
It's not so much fault of work or something, it's really just that communication, maybe it's trust, maybe, there's probably a lot of things in between the two levels. And
you're saying it perfectly, and I don't know, it's probably not trust, I don't know, but it's you all feel like you have to present a lot of data because you're trying to find the one that the board really wants to hear. To some extent, if there was clarity and expectation between the strategic team and the tactical team on what those lead measures are, then they don't have to guess anymore. And now the PowerPoint can get real tight. It can be Because we've agreed, and so I don't know, that may be what we're trying to kind of peel back here, because we can start to get harmony between these two teams when there's clear. I'll say this, you just said it, you said it earlier, the unspoken request can never be met. Okay, so we're trying to get clarity between, like, what is not just the outcome measure that we're trying, like, is the right outcome measure that we can agree on. But we're not even necessarily saying what the number needs to be, we need to say where the number comes from.
Yeah, and Greg, that's a great example of strategic role, and even at the tactical level, there's times where I'm asking questions about some evidence of something, right? And then the team is wondering, does he want all of this?
Yeah.
Or just some of this? And then all the conversation, no, I don't need all that, just, keep it up here. But everyone is doing a lot of mental work to try to figure out what does that other person expect.
Okay, I almost feel like, I'm not just saying this because you've got somewhere else to be, it's like, in my mind driving here, anytime it's like I felt like it was one of these four things, that if you all said we're not at a 3 or we're not at a 4, it's usually one of these four things. I think it's this clarity about the lead measures, the lag measures, and maybe like y'all run through what's the objective, what's the action. Get that cleaner for the board and me, or to be clean enough, and then what are the lead measures and what are the lag measures? And the strategic team and the tactical team, I feel a lot of trust. I feel a lot of grace, for lack of a better word, it's just like getting, we're just like, we're really close to getting it just a little clearer between the strategic and the tactical. Then you're off and running. Now the board's not hearing stuff that they don't necessarily want to hear, they're hearing stuff that lines up to what they adopted. And I want to debrief the good governance inventory, Dr. Paddle, but did that give you enough to kind of get a feel for maybe a next step?
I feel like that was a good volume shared learning here.
And I'm serious about this. Is y'all's anxiety up about that, or does that clarity that he was talking about actually feel like a relief if we could? Because he's right. Like in the absence of knowing what to present, we just try to throw the whole thing. It's like spaghetti. Just throw it all at the wall and see what sticks. And we can streamline a lot of effort if we know what we're looking at. That doesn't mean that y'all won't perseverate on volumes of data. You're going to do that, but we know what's that big number that we're trying to look at. Debrief the good governance inventory real quick. Let them eat lunch and go to their next.
Yeah, you want to take a couple minutes? Do people want to grab a salad if they haven't had a chance to? I don't want the conversation to get hangry.
Don't worry, I think that's a great idea. All right. Glance at those numbers. Well,
Yeah, here we go.
Everybody left.
We're all alone.
You were supposed to remember it. I failed this
Funny,
night.
somebody else, yeah.
I think it's
It's a breath of you.
Oh, I guess I need some.
remember yours.
How you ladies doing? Good, how are you?
Yeah, you remember that.
This is all. And then
All right, I think I returned your message. I think everybody has your good governance inventory with your secret code in the bottom right-hand corner. If you can, I'm going to like maybe eat with left hand and drop it down with right hand. I'm going to share the results of what the group said, if that makes sense. I'm going to do it real quickly so that you don't go back to eating and we'll just talk for a little bit and then wrap it up. Okay, on 1.1, you had 7 yeses and 1 no. On 1.2, you had 5 yeses and 3 no's. On 1.3, you had 5 yeses and 3 I don't know. Right, is that good? Is my pace okay? Like, okay. 2.1, you had 3 yeses, 4 no's, and 1 I don't know. 2.2, you had 5 yeses, 1 no, 2 I don't know. 2.3, you had 5 yeses and 3 no's. 3.1, you had 2 yeses, 4 no's, and 2 I don't know. 3.2, you had 2 yeses and 6 no's. 3.3, you had 4 yeses and 4 no's. 4.1, 5 no's, 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3 are all 5 no's and 3 I don't know. That makes sense?
Say it again.
4.1, 4.2, and 4.3 are all 3, 5 no's and 3 I don't know.
Got it.
Same responses on all 3 of those. And then going back to 5.1, you had 7 yeses, 1 no. 5.2, 5 yeses and 3 no's. 5.3, 5 yeses, 2 no's, and 1 I don't know. 6.1, 5 yeses, 2 no's, and 1 I don't know. 6.2, 2 yeses, 3 no's, and 3 I don't knows. And 6.3, 6 yeses, and 2 I don't know. So when you look at this, and this is part of the team of 8, training. Now, some of this is semantics, right? Like common language and semantics. But like seven of you, and then there's only 1 no on 1.1, and we're not going to probe that, or it's just not like, okay, that's everyone, that's that's not what this is about. And I would argue probably everything in the number 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, and 1, 3 is probably semantics, if I was guessing. It's like common language. Well, it's not to minimize common language. Common language is really important. So that's part of the reason of this clarity between strategic objectives and strategic actions is getting real common language. That's the common language to the board, the common language with the tactical team, and it's the common language that goes out to the front line. I feel confident under your new superintendent's direction that one strategy or strategic direction is set. I'm going out on a limb here for you, but once strategic direction is set, it's going to become a part of the rituals of the way you do business. Is that a fair statement? It's the goal. Okay. Does that make sense? So in other words, it's not like we're going to build a poster and stick it on the wall and y'all are going to hear about it again in 4 years. It's going to be a repetition of we're constantly reviewing what we said we were going to target. I would, I guess, not panic about 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3. I know his style. And the same thing for 2s, by the way. And you have 5 that are saying, I know or I don't know that we formally adopted a 3 to 5 year strategic plan with clear outcomes. Let me ask if someone doesn't mind volunteering, is it the clear outcomes that's the stuff? Okay, that was the, okay. So back to the earlier conversation, if we get clarity around the outcomes, then a bunch of people are saying, yeah, we just need to get clarity around the outcomes. That's a good clarification. The 2.3, board members can state in general terms our most important expected outcomes. I would suspect that's the same thing. If we get clarity around those outcomes, then that moves to an 8.0, without any problem at all. Probably same thing. Again, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3 outcomes was probably the caveat. Prevented from being all yeses. If you get into 3s, you have a clear model, formally adopted. 3.1 I may change in the future because it's probably what held you all up. We are recommending as an organization that you consider those 3 essential roles as part of your governance guidelines, whatever you want to call it. So I think 3.1 is a little bit of a trick question. I didn't intend for the 3 essential roles to be in there. So that's probably what prevented that from being better. But let me ask a question. Like, is it, you don't have board operating guidelines? Okay. So what we're recommending now, and this gets to 3 and 5 in this framework, this is just food for thought, maybe have a conversation about it. We're recommending that your board operating guidelines become your good governance handbook. So board operating guidelines are really important. They're generally written by attorneys, and nothing wrong with attorneys. I have 5 of them, you know.
Along with attorneys.
Yeah, but they're written, it's almost like a description of what the board cannot do. And then I think we should take time to write up what we think the board should do. Not just have a list of what the board can do. For example, I've got some sample good governance handbooks. A lot of them are saying, you know what, we're going to anchor around the two essential roles. We are the strategic team. We're going to support the tactical team. We're going to build communication methodology between the strategic team. Again, I've got several samples. Some are putting the aligning subsystems in the good governance. Like we assessed at stage 2, and we want to be a stage 4. So I know that's like simple stuff, but it's really important. And in some cases, and I don't think it's the case here, the board is functioning well, but there are elections that are happening that are kind of trying to get that, wanting to create disharmony. And again, y'all know that's happening in the state. Be happy with what you have. Because, so the current board, many boards, and y'all struck me as this kind of board saying we don't need that, but then they're not codifying what makes them a good board until someone gets on the board and starts trying to mess with it. I think it's better to try to codify what makes you a good board before that ever happens, so that at the very least, and this sounds terrible, but in one particular district in the Metroplex, they're basically saying, okay, if the 2 of y'all get elected, you have to adopt our good governance handbook if you want to do what you want to do. You see, like literally the first vote 4 of them are going to have to take is to, no, we do not want to follow good norms, and we do not want to follow solid data review. So that they're literally putting a marker down and saying, if you come in and do what you say you're going to do, you're going to be violating the board adopted norms. You see what I'm saying? So they're literally going to have to unadopt the norms before they can behave. And then at the very least, the community gets to see what happened because they have to unadopt the good governance handbook. I know that sounds crazy, but it is happening. And that kind of gets to that whole 3. I want to talk real briefly, get you guys out for your next meeting. If you look at 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3, you know, we're very consistent on the nose, and I don't know. When we think of advocacy at the board level, you know, I think the first picture, and I may be wrong, but the first picture that comes to mind is you guys going to the Capitol, you know, being there and testifying and being part of the TASB day at the Capitol and all that's good stuff. And that, I've participated in 25 TASB days at the Capitol and taking boards to the Capitol. Michael Pullen, in his book, The Governance Core, I think really nailed this concept of advocacy. And he said, like, advocacy at the state level is really important for school board trustees. What's way more important than that is the trustees being coherence makers locally. You make coherence. The 2 or 3 things come to mind, having clarity around the outcomes and the outputs and like that. So in other words, the same thing that the strategic team is saying is the same thing the tactical team, and now it's coherence happening. We started aligning our key talking points between the trustees and myself at SCUC around the key strategic objectives. We had 3 points of pride and 3 opportunities for improvement every quarter on our strategic plan. And it was written up, and like if we were at the chamber and all of a sudden I had laryngitis, one of y'all would say, oh, I got it. we know we're saying the same thing out in the public, and we're gonna say the stuff that we're doing well at, aligning to our strategic objectives, and then we're going to articulate the stuff we're working on. That may not be where we want it to be, and that board in SUC was really good about wanting to say that. Because if we go in and just say everything's grand and it's all, science experiments with verdict, someone that we're talking to is not having that experience, and we're almost like shunning the way that they're feeling. So we try to at least articulate the 2 or 3 most important things that we were working on. Now, I know in today's environment where there's increased competition and all that you've got to be careful about articulating that stuff, because your competition will weaponize that against you for sure. So you've got to be really careful. I do think there's a way to thread that needle. I absolutely believe strongly there's a way to thread that needle. Because we always felt like we had competition with Ground Zero for charter schools in San Antonio, so we had lots of competition in SCU, CISD. But we felt like there was a bigger charge for us to come off as a continuous improvement, listening and learning organization, even if we might give our competition some stuff to take out of context and use against us. It was a greater need for us to just demonstrate that we were continuous improvement. Does that make sense? But that is a dicey game, so I'm acknowledging that that's a dicey game. And then the 5th one, I think, back to the good governance conversation. And then the 6th one, a lot of what you have on 6.2 is back to what we were saying. It's hard to conduct an efficiency review if you don't have clearly defined outcomes, to measure against, and whether you choose to say ROI or not. It is one of the board's primary roles is to hire a superintendent, adopt a budget. By the way, there's another one in there, the oversight of management, that you don't hear about a whole lot. So I'm going to encourage you to get a system where the board oversees the tactical team, but it's harmonious. That oversight of management, when people read that, they think that means it has to be like power over thumb on, it says not. Like Cody in the Board of Discipline of Execution would say, it should be completely harmonious when we're communicating information. Lieutenant colonels and captains that go to the Pentagon and are asked to share a report to the generals, those generals are not going to accept BS, pardon, right? They're just not, like, they want to know what's really going on. That, in my mind, as a curriculum, past curriculum director, CFO, I wanted to think of it that way. I need to say what's working well, but then I also need to articulate the things that we're kind of working on that we're just not, like, it's not working. And in 12 years, that board at SCUC, all my direct reports were always trying to protect me, and I appreciate it. Well, if you show that, like, they're going to deem you to appraisal. We'll take our chances. We'll roll the dice. We'll take our chances. That board there, from the very beginning, said show the data like it is. I made a commitment to them to never bring data to them that I didn't like personally, unless I had already thought with the team collectively about the plan that we were going to make, because we don't like where that data. And I think as long as the superintendent and senior leader team live up to that, we'll never bring out data. Well, we might bring the data one time and say it's not where we're going to be, and we're formulating a plan if this becomes a trend line. Right? We all would probably accept that, right? And technically, it takes 3 data points to make a trend line. Okay? But sometimes around 2, we start getting ready. Right? Like, that's the second time this has happened, I don't want to be flat-footed when we get the 3rd data. Let's go ahead and start contingency designing about what the new thing is if we get a 3rd set of data. I feel comfortable that that's the way your superintendent's mind works, just from my time knowing him. And I think it's, the point of that is it's okay to communicate less than stellar information if you bring a plan. Right? That's the key. Compatible. I cranked 3 hours of work into that.
I don't think anyone's gonna complain. But, include, from everyone at the table, trustees and, chief strategists, do you have any questions just for us or, points just for clarification that you'd like to see us explore further?
This was good, good conversation.
I would like to somehow, I wish I'd had my strategic plan, you know, in front of us and put a lot of the information that we talked about today and say, this is what it looks like here, you know, and to put some more specifics to it would be helpful to me.
Well, I assume that that's where you're wanting to go, and this was just to validate. I'm assuming you didn't want to go a direction that it didn't feel like his team wanted to go. And I'm assuming, I think you've got a green light. Is it fair for Dr. Paddle to kind of go ahead and like, okay, let's go get objectives and actions separated and let's get lead measures and like.
Yeah, sure.
Line.
Absolutely.
I think that's the question.
That's
I think we engaged with the team, and just had the conversation of it, is there clarity around performance objectives and strategic actions? And then, from there, I think an opportunity for us is really define what are those leading measures, lagging measures, and outcomes look like. I shared during the break and salad grabbing time, I said, his analogy of when he was at TRS and said, you're asking the right questions, but the way you're going about it sucks, right? I can say that in the time here, sometimes I feel like I'm asking a lot of questions, and sometimes I feel like the way I'm going about it kind of stinks. And the thing that outcomes and clarity can do is there's just rhythms to how we operate, and then the superintendent or the board or the chief strategist, whoever, isn't diving into questions into the operational role. Rather, there's just rhythms about how we operate, which is it's system.
Yeah, there's, you don't, this is kind of off the cuff summary, but I mean, you don't have much that's unclear, but I think you've got a really critical little slice that's just a little bit unclear. And a lot of districts I'll roll into, and it's just like, what's strategy? That is not what we have here. It's just like, I'm dead serious about that. Like, if you leverage that, like where the jump you can make when you leverage that little gap that's made in there is going to be huge. There's no way it could directionally go back, no matter how it's going to feel while you're working on it. Big picture directionally, it can't. I mean, unless y'all just get in a knife fight over lead and lag measures, but I just see it going really positive. Thank you for reminding me that I have no FOMO on being a superintendent by doing, just for me, a rezoning presentation, just to remind me of why I retired. I'm on.
All right.
Okay, thank you all very much.